Relatives and friends, as we begin our service, we ask that you please turn off all cell phones or electronic devices or place them in a silent mode. Thank you.
Shalom and good afternoon. I'm Rabbi Gary Gans. I'm sad but honored to be with you this afternoon. I have to admit that I enjoyed speaking with Ron ahead of time because we have a lot of the same friends in common. We grew up in the exact same neighborhood, went to the same schools, went to the same hangouts as kids, and alas, he was a year ahead of me in school, but we had many of the same experiences. And some of you are here today that I remember a younger version of you, just as you may remember a younger version of me. I grew up on Glenview Street, only a few doors down from Fred Blum. And then you were on Tyson, which is only 3 streets over. So I feel like a reunion of the old neighborhood is taking place here. But our key today is to remember Susan. I understand that you were married for 48 years, plus 2 years after that blind date, which was a keeper. So you've done well in your life and your support of each other. And your children are here with their partners and friends. We acknowledge Kim and Robin and Scott. And you saw, including John, that they're wearing the black ribbons. These are the ribbons that represent the sense of life that has been torn, just as the ribbons are. But when you get closer to them afterwards, you'll see that the tear does not go all the way to the top. That's still intact. The place of the ribbon closest to the heart, filled with memories and emotions, that is complete. And they're never to be torn again or to be worn again after this period of mourning. I offer some prayers. Ma'ayan Chayim, wellspring of life. We've come together today to commemorate the life of Susan. We recall the blessing of her life. We thank God for all that was good and true in her life, and for the precious memories which shall endure. Eternal God, her family and friends are bowed in grief and seek light to dispel the dark gloom that threatens to overwhelm them. Be gracious to those who mourn, for they are in distress. Bless them with your compassion. Ease their burden of sorrow. Send them light and peace. For it is written, fear not, as I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will sustain you with my power. And let us say, Amen. I offer parts of the traditional Psalm 23, an excerpt in Hebrew and in English interpretation. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai ro'i lo echsar, ben nodesha yarbitzeni, al mei menuchot yanach aleni. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. God has me lie down in green pastures and leads me beside the still waters. God guides me on paths of righteousness and revives my soul for the sake of God's glory. Though I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no harm, for you are with me. Your staff and your rod do comfort me. You set the table in sight of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall abide in the house of the Lord forever. I have a familiar, perhaps favorite, reading to offer at funerals. I offer it for most members of my congregation, my own parents, from this very same pulpit. And it acknowledges the realities of life and loss, a sense of closure and completion. These are the words of Ben Sirach, who wrote several thousand years ago, and I read for you in translation. We are all destined to die. We share it with all who ever lived, with all who ever will be. Cry for the dead. Hide not your grief. Do not restrain your mourning, but remember that continuing sorrow is worse than death. When the dead are at rest, let their memory be a source of peace, and be consoled when the soul departs. Life is better than a life of pain, and eternal rest than lingering illness. As a drop of water in the sea, as a grain of sand on the shore, are our few days in eternity. The good things in life last for a short time, but a good name, a good reputation, endures forever. This is a range of feelings and emotions. I sensed the joy of coming together that some of you had prior to the ceremony, tinged with the reason why, in fact, we are here today. And that spectrum of feeling, spectrum of emotion, is reflected as well in the book of Ecclesiastes. For everything, there is a season, a time for every experience under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak. This is, in fact, a time to speak, to share, and I'm honored to call on Kim first.
First, thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. I know my family appreciates it too. And I love you guys. I'm going to make this short and sweet, just like my mom. How to put into words how my mom made me feel was a little more difficult than I imagined. One thing for sure, she always had my back, and she pretty much had anyone else's back that needed support, including all of our friends growing up, and that really just felt like extended family in our home always. She was never one for mushy emotional stuff, but she felt with her whole heart. She taught me to be strong, to think for myself, and always keep my sense of humor. Sarcasm and wit was her answer to any situation that made her uncomfortable, but you always knew that she loved you. And I also have about 50 saved voicemails on my phone to prove it. And I will miss our conversations. We spoke every day, even though I was in Florida. It was like we would FaceTime or talk pretty much every day, at least once, if not more. And most of the time it was talking about the weather or what celebrity passed away or what Whoopi was up to. But it didn't matter. I appreciated that time every time, and I never took it for granted. And I know my mom is at peace, and so I feel at peace too. And I will miss her every day and make sure to share memories of her to whomever will listen. And may her memory always be a blessing to all that knew her.
I don't have a Wookiee on my list. Is Wookiee a human? A Whoopi. Oh, she's human. Okay. I was hearing a Star Trek, Star Wars thing. Sorry about that. Now I call on Robin.
I'm really awful at this stuff. As a matter of fact, I wrote a bunch down and I might just throw it out. I feel like I've had about a couple of months now thinking about my mom, spending time with her. And it was difficult for our family. But she really is the most amazing person and the most amazing mother. She showed her creativity while we were growing up. My brother can speak to that maybe later, with his lovely costumes. Professional skier, extraordinary teacher, making us all drink milk every night. She made our dinners, we ate at home, we had salad. She was a really loving, supporting mother. And we were not easy children, I will tell you that. She was strong and loving, and she lived an amazing life. Even before we were born, she was a rock star. She also handled everything with grace, which is something I'm trying to do in my life. She was very content, always smiling, and she appreciated the simple things. And I say this to my kids all the time, some of the things I appreciate that are just the smallest things that make me happy and smile, and I don't need a lot. And this woman did not need a lot. When she retired, she retired. And I used to say, like, she did so much that she just had to stop doing and giving, and she was going to live her life. And I will say that I remember thinking that she wasn't actually living her life to her fullest at that time. But I was way wrong. The woman was living her own dream, and she loved her family and her home, and that is where she spent it, and that is what she did. So I'm just saying that so that I can say it, because I really did have a hard time understanding like why she was living that way. But she was happy. I know that because she told me. She loved her solitaire and her crosswords and Ellen and Court TV. She filled me in on these things daily. That was like her excitement. And the news. I had to hear everything that was going on, even though I purposely don't watch the news. I was also thinking that it was a blessing she never learned how to use that iPhone, because she would have crushed me in Candy Crush. She will always be with me, my children, in all of our hearts, and I am not saying goodbye. I am saying I will see you later, Mom. Thank you for making me who I am.
I now call on Scott.
It's hard to say anything after that, but I'll give you, my story. Growing up, my mom was an amazing mom. She was an athlete. If you see when you came in, we made her a little memorial of her accomplishments. She was a world-class skier. She was a champion, very competitive, and she passed that down to her kids. My mom taught me everything. She taught me how to ride a bike. She taught me how to throw a wiffle ball. She taught me how to ski between her legs. When I was a kid. She did everything for us growing up. She carpooled us everywhere we had to go. The sick days, she stayed home and sacrificed, for us. And she was always there. Robin talked about her creativity, and I took the tough part of that when I was dressed up as a mailbox for Halloween and a fire hydrant one year for Halloween, and you probably don't want to know what happened when the dogs came around, but but she did everything for us. But more importantly, she dedicated her entire life to other children, and not regular children. She dedicated her life to special needs kids. For her entire career, every day she'd wake up and go and teach special needs, and she didn't do it because it was her job. She did it because she cared. She cared about making a difference in these kids' lives. And I was fortunate enough as a kid that she would take me with her to these days and watch her, what she did, throughout life. And one thing that always, stuck with me was, as other teachers would teach kids, and these kids would go on to a great college education or, to become, a great profession. Some of her accomplishments were getting a kid to learn to tie a shoe or to write their name. And she took such pride in that. And it really left an impact, I think, on me, throughout my life and how important that was. So many people have reached out over the past, few weeks since we've been going through this, to my family, my dad, and, offered their condolences. And I know I'm choking up a little bit, but it's not a tragedy. We were, fortunate enough to spend our lives with my mom. She was a beautiful woman. She had an amazing life. And, as much as she took care of us, it was a blessing on our end to be able to take care of her at the end. I watched my mom take care of her parents towards the end, and it really, makes me feel fortunate to be there with her. And hopefully one day my kids will be there, one day and able to experience that as well. So she had an amazing impact on the world, and she has 6 beautiful grandkids, Matthew, Devin, Marissa, Jonathan, Nathan, and Hannah. And they were the light of her life. So thank you all for coming. Thank you for being a part of this and supporting us. A few of you, when I met you, maybe from the golf club or people I haven't met before, today, they said, I danced with your mom. Your mom, would always come up. My mom was the life of the party. My mom showed up with a glass of wine. She stayed till the end. She would dance. She would have fun. And, one thing that I'll take from her is, do whatever the heck you want in life. Enjoy it. Enjoy your passions. Be kind to everybody. And I'll always carry that part of her with me. So thank you.
I now welcome Ron to come up and to share as well.
Wow. How do I follow that? Thank you, Kim, Robin, and Scott. You did honor to a woman that deserved it. 50 years seems like a long time. It flew. It flew. And now we have the memories. And we've got so many. Now, many of you know I'm suffering an issue with my throat. And aside from the emotion, it'd be difficult to really express my feelings for my family, for my friends, and for my wonderful wife. So I've asked my son, my brother, who's like a son, to help me out. I hope you'll all understand And I just as soon save some of this for the luncheon that follows, because I want to be with each of you and truly thank you for joining me and my family. Look at what this woman gave me. Malice, pure love, devotion, amazing. Never asked for anything in return. It was just the love that she got. So without further ado, Mitch,
Phew. Okay, Dad, sit down. Wow. Truly amazing life I've had with these wonderful family. I think I'm crying more now than at my mom. Okay. This is written all by my brother. Start here? Yeah. Okay. Dad, over the past 2 weeks since Sue's passing, my mind has been reliving nearly 50 years of our life's journey together. And what a journey it's been. Being a man of few words. I think you made a mistake. I'm not sure how to express my feelings in words, and words do not do justice to Sue's life and our life together. So allow me to simply say, thank you, Sue, for making my life and the lives of our family, friends, as wonderful as you have. You nailed it. It all began on a cold January night in 1974 when we met on a blind date. As you have told the story, you requested that I pick you up at your parents' house, where you staged 4-year-old Kim and 3-year-old Robin, dressed in their PJs, sitting on the couch. Later, you told me it was a strategy or would be an excuse if I turned out to be a dog. Well, I believe you agree it was love at first sight, and immediately felt that I would marry this girl. Nearly 2 years later, October 5th, 1975, we took our vows, embarked on an incredible life's journey. People have asked, how did you make it for nearly 50 years? And I say, it couldn't have been easier. A year and a half later, we brought Scott into the world and made our family complete. Although the experiences we share are now deeply implanted in memories, you made each one of us so special they cannot be forgotten. From loving daughter to Ed and Ruby, sister to John and Jane, remarkable mother and grandmother, and to me, the best partner a man can ask for. You have blessed us with your love, dedication, and selflessness. And on behalf of our friends who got to know your goodness and the hundreds of learning disabled children you have cared for and made a difference for 33 years, we are honored to celebrate your life's achievements. Finally, although I miss you and will continue to know we are not far apart, for every time I think of you, you're right here in my heart. A little story I just have to say. One of the first times I met Sue, she had converted to Judaism before she met Ron. And she told me she loved to cook, and she was making matzo ball soup for the first time. And she didn't know to soak the matzo balls in some water or club soda or something before you put them in the soup. She said she put them in the soup, and they were the biggest matzo balls. There was no soup, but they were the best matzo balls she ever had. And that kind of, she was a great cook, unbelievable. And
One more thing.
yeah.
I just want to say this. This is not to be a sad day. It's been 50 years of a wonderful life, and we'll miss her. But she's not suffering as she did. Now, the one thing some of you really don't know is Sue was really a funny, sense of humor person. Didn't come out all the time. But one example of her sense of humor. In the end, we called hospice. And God bless them. They came over to interview us and get to meet Sue. And Sue was all dressed up to meet these people. And the nurse, Teresa, sat there and said, "So, Sue, how do you feel?" And she immediately said, "I feel great. The only problem is I can't breathe." That was her kind of humor. And God bless her. And wait for me, Sue. I'll join you. And we'll continue the journey. Thank you all.
I deeply appreciated hearing these different perspectives about Sue. The part that I identify with the most are her years of hard work for autistic children. I have a son on the autistic spectrum, and I deeply always appreciated those who worked with him and the patience that I'm sure she had to have lasted 33 years doing this hard work. And that was its own reward. I understand it as a thankful parent. I'm going to read two of the concluding prayers now. The first is going to be called the El Malei Rachamim, God, the compassionate one, who we turn to at times of sadness and trouble and thanksgiving. I also will embed within this prayer her Hebrew name, Shoshana bat Avraham. And Shoshana means a flower, like a lily or a rose. And I have a sense of that name reverberating in the vignettes that you shared. That will be followed by the mourner's Kaddish, which is misnamed and is never referencing death, but life. And that will be a prayer for those of us who are survivors, for those of us to be instructed to appreciate our lives and every day that we're granted. And for these two prayers, I ask you please to stand. Those who are comfortable to stand. El malei rachamim, shochen b'mromim, hamtzei menucha nechona tachat kanfei hashechina, b'malot kedoshim u'toharim, kezohar harakia mazhirim, et nishmat Shoshana bat Avraham, shalcha le'olama. Began Eden tehei menuchata, Ana, ba'al harachamim, hasireha b'seter knapecha le'olamim, usror b'sror chaim et nishmata, Adonai hu nachalata, v'tanuach b'shalom ma'mishkava v'nomar, Amen. O God, exalted and full of compassion, grant perfect peace in your sheltering presence. among the holy and pure, to the soul of Susan Goldman, Shoshana Bat Avraham, who has gone to her eternal home. Master of mercy, we beseech you, remember all the worthy and righteous deeds that she performed in the land of the living. May her soul be bound up in the bond of life. The Lord is her portion. May she rest in the tranquility of shalom, of peace. And let us say, Amen. We turn now to the Kaddish that is in those booklets that you have. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah. Be'alma divrach irute v'yamlich malchute. B'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayede kol Beit Yisrael ba'agala uv'izman kariv imaru. Amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mavorach le'olam omei omaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal shmei dekudesha brichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata da'amiran v'alma v'imaru. Amen. Yehi shlama Rabbah min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imaru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imaru. Amen. You may be seated. I end the ceremony with the traditional prayers offered to conclude the event. Hamakom yenachem etchem b'tok sha'ar v'lei Tzion v'Yerushalayim. May the merciful God have comfort for you all among the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. As a community of consolation, let's come together and say, Amen.